A strong hold over current affairs is crucial for aspirants to succeed in the UPSC Civil Services examination. Administer your preparation with updated and relevant news with the monthly Current Affairs Revision Program. Starting from 20th September at 5 p.m., the 60 dedicated classes offer detailed topic-wise coverage of important news compiled through authentic sources such as The Hindu, Indian Express, PIB, Yojana among others. Enhance your knowledge with up-to-date contextual understanding of all current affairs, expert support through personal mentoring, assessment through MCQs and mains-oriented questions, doubt-clearing sessions, student portal access.
Hello and welcome to this edition of News Today. Without delay, let's have a look at the headlines first. Viewing, storing child sexual exploitation and abuse material is an offence, says Supreme Court. Periodic Labour Force Survey Annual Report released by NSSO. UN adopts Pact for the Future at the UN Summit for the Future. India-US ink Pact to set up Semiconductor Fabrication Plant for National Security. International Rhino Foundation released State of the Rhino 2024 report. Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure marks its 5th anniversary. In a landmark decision, the Supreme Court of India has criminalized the mere viewing or possession of child sexual exploitation and abuse material, or CSEAM, overturning a 2024 Madras High Court ruling that had decriminalized such acts if done in private without intent to transmit. This ruling reaffirms India's commitment to protecting children from sexual crimes under the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences or POCSO Act 2012 and the Information Technology Act 2000. The Supreme Court has endorsed the use of the term CSEAM instead of child pornography in all judicial orders and judgments. The court highlighted that there is no distinction between viewing CSEAM and the act of child sexual abuse, as both reflect the same intent of exploiting a child for sexual gratification. The term pornography is often associated with acts between consenting adults, which may undermine the severity of child victimization. Key highlights of the verdict include the criminalization of mere possession of CSEAM. This is now recognized as an inchoate offence under Section 15 of the POCSO Act. Section 67B of the IT Act also penalizes the transmission or publication of child sexual abuse material. Notably, inchoate, underdeveloped or incomplete crimes are committed in preparation for a further offence. The court underscored the harmful impact of CSEAM, noting that merely viewing such material desensitizes individuals, increases demand, and fuels its creation and distribution. The emotional, social, and mental well-being of child victims is profoundly affected, with many facing intense social stigmatization, isolation, and difficulty maintaining healthy relationships due to trust issues. The Supreme Court has recommended that the POCSO Act be amended to replace the term child pornography with CSEAM and called for the establishment of an expert committee to develop a comprehensive health and sex education program. The court also emphasized the need for public campaigns to raise awareness about the harsh realities and consequences of CSEAM to help curb its prevalence. The POCSO Act, first introduced in 2012 and amended in 2019, aims to combat sexual crimes against children by outlining strict measures and child-friendly procedures. With this latest ruling, the Supreme Court has reinforced India's zero-tolerance approach towards child sexual exploitation, strengthening the legal framework to better protect vulnerable children. Notably, Section 15 of POCSO Act penalizes storage of child pornography with an intention to share or transmit it.
The National Sample Survey Office has just released the Periodic Labour Force Survey Annual Report for the period of July 2023 to June 2024. The survey, which was launched in 2017, serves a vital role in providing key insights into employment and unemployment indicators across the country. The core objectives of the PLFS is to estimate important employment metrics, which include the worker population ratio, the labor force participation ratio, and the unemployment rate. For urban areas, these indicators are updated every 3 months using what's known as the current weekly status. While for both rural and urban areas, the survey provides annual estimates through both the usual status and current weekly status approaches. Now, to better understand these key indicators, the worker population ratio reflects the percentage of employed individuals in the population, essentially highlighting the level of workforce engagement. The labor force participation rate, or LFPR, offers a measure of how many people are either working, seeking work, or are available to work. On the other hand, the unemployment rate looks at the percentage of people who are part of the labor force but are currently unemployed. Additionally, the survey captures an individual's activity status, which refers to what they have been engaged in during a specific reference period. The usual status reference period is 365 days, while the current weekly status is based on a much shorter time frame, focusing on the 7 days leading up to the survey. Wrapping up, let us also take a look at the key findings of the report. These findings indicate a positive trend in both labor force participation and worker participation rates, with notable improvements across rural areas and among females. Urban and male participation also saw slight increases. Meanwhile, the unemployment rate has remained stable over the period. This suggests overall growth in workforce engagement, particularly in rural and female segments, contributing to a healthier labor market. This report offers crucial data that helps us understand labor market trends, including how employment, unemployment, and workforce participation are evolving across both rural and urban settings.
In a landmark decision, the United Nations has adopted the Pact for the Future during the highly anticipated UN Summit for the Future. This pivotal agreement, along with its annexes, the Global Digital Compact and the Declaration on Future Generations, aims to tackle 21st century challenges such as climate change, conflict, and human rights abuses. The pact was adopted by consensus, though a small group of 7 countries led by Russia withheld their support. Let's begin by discussing the key deliverables in the pact. First and foremost, we have sustainable development and financing. The pact seeks to give developing countries a stronger voice in global financial institutions and strengthen the financial safety net to protect the poorest populations. Second, international peace and security. There is a renewed commitment to nuclear disarmament with the ultimate goal of completely eliminating nuclear weapons. The pact also aims to prevent the weaponization and misuse of new technologies, including lethal autonomous weapons. Third, we have science, technology, and innovation. A key focus is conducting scientific research ethically and responsibly, ensuring the protection of human rights. It also emphasizes safeguarding indigenous and traditional knowledge, empowering women, and addressing gender risk from emerging technologies. Fourth, youth and future generations. Member states are committed to considering the well-being of future generations in their decision-making processes, ensuring long-term sustainability. Lastly, transforming global governance. The Pact highlights the need to strengthen international frameworks governing outer space, preventing an arms race in this domain. It also calls for reforms to make the UN Security Council more representative, particularly by addressing Africa's underrepresentation. Wrapping up, as part of the annexures of the Pact for the Future, the Global Digital Compact represents a worldwide agreement focused on the international regulation of artificial intelligence and digital technologies. It outlines commitments to ensure that digital innovations contribute to sustainable development while addressing key issues like digital divide, cybersecurity, and the misuse of technology. Another key annexure, the Declaration on Future Generations, emphasizes securing the well-being of future generations by protecting the environment and promoting intergenerational equity. In a historic step towards technological self-reliance, India and the United States have signed a landmark agreement to establish India's first semiconductor fabrication plant dedicated to national security. Named Shakti, this will be the world's first multi-material fabrication plant and the first of its kind within the Quad Alliance. Notably, it marks the first time the US military has agreed to a high-level technology partnership with India, demonstrating a strategic shift in defense collaboration. Shakti will focus on three essential pillars for modern war fighting: advanced viewing and sensing, advanced communications, and high voltage power electronics. It will manufacture cutting-edge infrared, gallium nitride, and silicon carbide semiconductors essential for both defense and commercial sectors like telecommunications and green energy. The project will be supported by the India Semiconductor mission and executed through a strategic partnership between Bharat Semi, Third Eye Tech, and the US Space Force. This development represents a major transformation for India, shifting the country from a semiconductor chip taker to a chip maker, reinforcing its national security. Currently, India imports nearly $1 billion worth of semiconductors annually for defense needs. The Shakti will reduce this dependency. It will address growing needs of commercial sectors like telecommunications, railways, and green energy. It will also strengthen research and development partnerships, such as the recent collaboration with Global Foundries Kolkata Power Center. As part of the larger Semicon India program, the India Semiconductor mission under the Ministry of Electronics and IT aims to build a robust semiconductor ecosystem, making India a global hub for electronics and manufacturing. It is a specialized and independent business division within Digital India Corporation. This plant will bolster both India's defense capabilities and its ambitions to be a net security provider in the Indo-Pacific region.
The International Rhino Foundation has just released its much-anticipated State of the Rhino 2024 report, shedding light on the current status of the world's rhino population. For over 3 decades, IRF, initially known as the International Black Rhino Foundation, has been dedicated to the survival of all 5 rhino species. Now, let's dive into some of the key findings from the report. Globally, there are now just under 28,000 rhinos left. A concerning detail is the increase in rhino poaching in Africa, which saw a rise of 4% from 2022 to 23. However, not all the news is bleak. The population of white rhinos has seen an increase, particularly in South Africa, despite ongoing poaching challenges. On the other hand, the number of greater one-horned rhinos, commonly known as the Indian rhino, has remained stable. Now, let's take a moment to understand these magnificent creatures. There are 5 species of rhino: 2 African, the white rhino and the black rhino, and 3 Asian: the Indian rhino, the Sumatran rhino, and the Javan rhino. Speaking of conservation, India has been at the forefront with initiatives like the National Rhino Conservation Strategy 2019, aimed at protecting the Indian rhino. There's also the New Delhi Declaration on Asian Rhinos 2019 and the ambitious Indian Rhino Vision 2020, which have been critical in bolstering the species' survival. Now, let's compare the African and Asian rhinos, beginning with their size. While the white rhino is the second largest land mammal after the elephant, the Indian rhino holds the title as the largest of all Asian rhino species. When it comes to appearance and behavior, African rhinos tend to have a less armored look and are generally more aggressive. They rely on their 2 horns for fighting and, interestingly, are poor swimmers, often sticking to the mud wallowing. In contrast, Asian rhinos like the Indian and Javan rhinos sport a more armored appearance. They are less aggressive and, instead of fighting with their horns, they use their bottom teeth. These species are good swimmers and feed on tall grasses, shrubs, and leaves. In terms of habitat, African rhinos inhabit grasslands, savannas, and even deserts, while Asian rhinos prefer tropical and subtropical grasslands, savannas, and tropical moist forests. Finally, let's discuss their conservation status. The white rhino is classified as near threatened by the IUCN, while the black rhino remains critically endangered. Among the Asian species, the Indian rhino is listed as vulnerable and also enjoys the highest protection under India's Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Unfortunately, the Sumatran and Javan rhinos continue to be critically endangered. Moving ahead, Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure has marked its 5th anniversary. On this significant occasion, the CDRI has announced a major step forward, a $2.5 million fund under the Urban Infrastructure Resilience Program aimed at boosting climate resilience in cities across 30 low and middle income countries, including India. The CDRI, launched at the UN Climate Action Summit in 2019 by India, has since grown into a powerful global partnership that includes nations, UN agencies, multilateral development banks, and the private sector. Its objective is to ensure that infrastructure systems are resilient to the increasing risk posed by climate change and disaster risks, all while advancing sustainable development. With 40 countries and 7 organizations currently on board, CDRI is headquartered in New Delhi and continues to make significant strides in its mission. One of its key contributions is the Global Infrastructure Resilience Report, which offers insight into the state of disaster resilience worldwide. Now, why is CDRI so important? It provides a global mechanism for financing and coordination of the effective implementation of the aims of the CDRI. By providing technical support and capacity building, the coalition enhances disaster response, recovery, and innovation efforts across its member states. Among the noteworthy initiatives by CDRI is the Infrastructure for Resilient Island States program, aimed at supporting resilient infrastructure in small island developing states. There's also the DRI Connect platform, a space for knowledge exchange and collaborative learning, and the International Conference on Disaster Resilience Infrastructure, an annual conference that gathers global experts, decision makers, and more to discuss challenges and identify good practices. Adding to this list of initiatives is the Infrastructure Resilience Accelerator Fund, created with the backing of the UNDP and UNDRR to fuel global efforts in strengthening disaster-resilient infrastructure systems. On a broader level, disaster resilience efforts are also supported by global frameworks like the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030, which provides member states with concrete actions to mitigate disaster risks, and the UN International Strategy for Disaster Reduction. Closer to home, India has taken several important steps for disaster resilience. These include the National Policy on Disaster Management 2009, aimed at developing a holistic and proactive strategy for building disaster-resilient infrastructure, and the Disaster Management Act of 2005, which established key agencies like the National Disaster Management Authority and the National Disaster Response Force. As CDRI marks this 5th anniversary, it's clear that building resilient infrastructure is not just about protecting assets. It's about safeguarding lives and livelihoods in the face of an increasingly unpredictable climate. In today's personality news, we will discuss Sant Tukaram. He is in news as the Maharashtra government has approved a proposal to rename Pune Airport as Jagat Guru Sant Tukaram Maharaj Pune International Airport. Sant Tukaram was a 17th century saint poet, contemporary of Shivaji Maharaj, and philosopher related to Bhakti movement of Maharashtra. He belonged to Varkari sect along with Saint Gyaneshwar, Eknath and Namdev, which flourished in medieval Maharashtra. Talking about his key contributions, he was known for his Abhanga devotional poetry and community-oriented worship through spiritual songs known as Kirtans. Abhanga is in praise of Lord Pandurang or Vitthal, chief deity of Varkari and incarnation of Vishnu. His famous works included Tukaram Gatha, 1632 to 1650 in Marathi, includes about 4,500 Abhangas. His works contributed to the Bhakti movement, which emphasized equality, devotion to God, and social reform. Through his actions, he portrayed the values of faith, devotion, spirituality, and more.
As we wrap up today's main news, let's have a look at some quick updates. Quad countries launched Cancer Moonshot Initiative. It is to strengthen overall cancer care ecosystem in Indo-Pacific by improving health infrastructure, research collaborations, etc. Credit Guarantee Fund Trust for Micro and Small Enterprises has approved guarantees amounting to Rs 1 lakh crore. Its aim is to provide credit guarantee support to member lending institutions for credit facilities sanctioned by them to MSEs, especially in absence of collateral. SEBI study highlighted that 93% of individual futures and options traders have incurred losses between 2022 and 24. They are derivative instruments deriving its value or price from an underlying asset. Ministry of Defence has approved expansion plan for National Cadet Corps cadet vacancies by 3 lakh, raising the total strength from 17 lakhs to 20 lakhs in coming years. It is established under the National Cadet Corps Act 1948. It aims at developing character, the spirit of adventure and ideals of selfless service amongst young citizens. Supreme Court ruled that 14-day timeline for granting sanction for prosecution under Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967 is mandatory and not discretionary. It provides for more effective prevention of certain unlawful activities of individuals and associations and for dealing with terrorist activities. National Green Tribunal state construction of road inside Barak Bhuban Wildlife Sanctuary. It is spread between Barak and Sonai rivers in Assam's Kachar district. Union Minister of Power has inaugurated Computer Security Incident Response Team, Power Facility in New Delhi. It was initiated by the Ministry of Power following the National Cyber Security Policy and in collaboration with CERT-IN. Recently, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways has issued policy guidelines to promote use of urban solid waste or inert materials in construction of national highways. Few sustainable road construction practices include use of inert soil, use of waste plastic as modifier and binder, geosynthetics, etc. Before we sign off, let's challenge your understanding in today's installment of Test Your Knowledge. Thank you for joining us. We hope you found our today's episode engaging. For the solutions to the quiz and for the PDF version, visit the links in the description below.